I still remember that night like it happened only yesterday. The road stretched on endlessly, a ribbon of black asphalt swallowed by the fog. My headlights flickered against the mist, carving out fleeting shapes that dissolved as soon as I blinked. The world felt hollow out there, just me, the hum of the engine, and the pale glow of the dashboard clock ticking slowly past midnight. Every few miles, I'd pass a broken streetlight, its faint buzz cutting through the silence before fading into the night again. I kept telling myself it was just exhaustion, the mind playing tricks after too many hours alone on the highway. But then I noticed the shadows. They weren't shaped like trees or signs, and they didn't move with the rhythm of the car. They stood too still, too tall, waiting along the roadside as if they were watching. My chest tightened, and I gripped the steering wheel harder, hoping the next town wasn't far. But the more I drove, the more they seemed to follow, always just at the edge of the light. That's when I saw it. The figure in the middle of the road, standing perfectly still in the fog. It was just after 2 in the morning. Highway 41 stretched empty in both directions, quiet as bone. Cold air pressed through the trees. And the fog? It came in slow, like breath on glass. I saw the car first. Pulled over on the shoulder. Headlights still on. No movement inside. The dashboard clock ticked louder than it should have, each second, echoing against the windshield. I stepped out of my patrol car, boots sinking slightly into wet gravel. The air smelled of metal and dust, old rain, a whisper of gasoline, and underneath it, something faint, like rust that had been wet too long. I kept one hand on the door, the red and blue lights flickering over the road. Everything looked pale, as if the color had been drained away. When I walked closer, the fog swallowed the edges of the light. The silence changed, a soft hum somewhere deep in it. Not an engine, not wind, something else. I looked through the driver's window. Empty. Keys still in the ignition, cup of coffee gone cold. And on the seat, a jacket, folded neatly, no footprints on the ground. No sign of struggle, just stillness, I called out, voice low. Hello? Highway Patrol. You okay? It drifted into the fog and didn't come back. That's when I saw it, just beyond the taillights. A shape, faint, human-sized, standing in the white haze, unmoving. I blinked, thinking maybe it was a trick of the fog. But it didn't fade, it only lingered. My breath turned shallow. Each exhale came out in tiny clouds. The hum had stopped. And the silence, it grew thick, like it was listening. I called again. The word barely made it past my throat. Nothing. I turned back to the abandoned car, reached for the radio on my shoulder. And that's when something shifted. A flicker in the corner of my eye. I looked up. The shape was closer now. Half the distance between us, still not moving. The fog rolled around its legs, but I couldn't see a face. No features at all. Just a darker shade of gray. The red light from my cruiser flashed over it for half a second. And I thought I saw something there, a gleam, like eyes, but not human ones. My hand froze over the radio. I didn't speak, didn't breathe. The only thing I could hear was the faint crackle of static from the patrol car. Then, a soft tap on the glass behind me. I turned, fast, nothing. But when I looked back toward the fog, the figure was gone. The road stretched empty again. The mist folded in on itself, slow and heavy. I waited. 1 second, 2, the radio hissed quietly in my ear. I started backing toward the cruiser. Didn't want to run. Didn't want to make a sound. Every breath felt like it might give me away. When I reached the door, I caught the reflection in the mirror. A shadow, standing right behind the rear lights, closer than before. Closer than it should be. Its outline rippled in the flashing red. Like it was breathing, but there was no mist coming from it, no breath, no warmth, just shape. I tried to open the door. The handle stuck. Cold metal bit my palm. The hum came back, low, underneath everything, vibrating through the air like a heartbeat. I finally pulled the door open, slammed it shut behind me, and the moment I turned the headlights on, the fog was clear again. Empty road, nothing there. The hum stopped. Only the faint ticking of the engine. I sat there for a long time, watching the space beyond the red lights. It felt like something was still standing there, just outside what I could see. When dispatch finally answered, I told them it was a false alarm. Abandoned car. No one around. They asked if I wanted backup. I said no. And even as I drove away, the feeling didn't leave, because in the rearview mirror, for just a second, the fog rippled again, and the shadow moved. It was late. Past midnight. The highway stretched empty again, only the soft hum of tires on wet asphalt. I'd been driving for hours. The fog had followed me the whole way, curling over the headlights like breath against glass. When the rest stop lights appeared through the mist, it felt like finding a small island in a black sea. One pale building, one flickering bulb above the bathroom door. I pulled in slow. The lot was almost empty. Only 2 other cars. Both dark, both still. The engine ticked quietly when I turned it off. Even that sound felt too loud here. The air was colder than before. It smelled like damp concrete and dust, and something faint. The metallic bite of old pipes. The bulb above the bathroom door buzzed, flickering between yellow and white. A fly circled the light, its wings catching the glow for half a second before disappearing again. I walked closer. My footsteps didn't echo. They just sank into the air. Each step felt heavier, like the ground wanted to hold me in place. The door creaked when I pushed it open. Inside, dim tiled walls. A single sink streaked with water stains. The mirror above it cracked down the center. Something was humming, low, almost gentle at first. I thought it was the light, but when I looked up, the bulb inside wasn't flickering. The hum wasn't coming from there, it was under everything. Behind the walls, inside the pipes. A static that crawled just under the skin. The air felt wrong, thicker than it should be. My reflection trembled in the mirror, even though I was standing still. I didn't stay long. Didn't want to. When I pushed the door open again, the night pressed against me. The fog had thickened while I was inside. The lot looked different now. Empty. The 2 cars were gone. Only mine remained. For a moment, I thought I'd parked wrong, that maybe I was in a different space entirely. But there it was. Same dent on the bumper, same jacket hanging inside. I exhaled, feeling the air shake a little in my chest. I just wanted to keep moving. As I walked closer, the hum followed me, not from the building anymore. It was softer now, like it had sunk into the fog itself. The windows of my car were wet with condensation. Each droplet caught the light, a tiny trembling bead that slid down the glass. I reached for the handle, then stopped. In the reflection, something was sitting in the back seat, not moving. Not clear, just a darker shape in the faint glow of the rest stop light. At first I told myself it was a shadow, the kind you get when light bends wrong through fog. But as I watched, it shifted, ever so slightly, like a person adjusting their weight. My throat felt tight. Every breath made the glass cloud a little more. I didn't open the door. I just stared, trying to see a face. There wasn't one. Only the impression of someone there, sitting, waiting. The hum grew again, deeper this time. The glass vibrated softly beneath my fingertips. I backed away. 1 step, 2. The shape didn't move. I looked toward the building. The light above the bathroom door had gone out. The fog pressed closer, swallowing the corners of the lot. When I looked back at the car, the shape was gone. Only the empty seats. Only my jacket. Everything exactly where it should be. The condensation on the windows had cleared, like someone had wiped it away from the inside. I got in anyway, hands trembling against the steering wheel. The air inside felt warmer than it should, and faintly on from the back seat, the hum was still there, quieter now. Almost hidden beneath the sound of my breath, I drove off without looking back. The fog swallowed the rest stop behind me, but in the mirror, for just a moment, the pale light flickered on again, and the back seat didn't look empty anymore. It was close to 3 in the morning, the kind of quiet where even the hum of the tires feels too loud. Route 19 stretched out ahead, empty, endless, a silver line through the dark. I'd been driving since sundown. No towns, no gas stations, just fog and the steady blink of my dashboard clock. The CB radio sat on the seat beside me. I kept it on mostly for company. The static was soft tonight, like rain that never quite touched the ground. Every now and then it would crackle, a whisper, then fade again. I leaned forward, eyes heavy, watching the faint red glow of another truck far ahead. 2 taillights floating in the mist. Too far to read the plate, but close enough to know I wasn't the only one left out here. Then, a voice, weak, breaking through the static. "Anyone out there?" I straightened up. The voice came again, sharper this time, but still thin, like it was buried under the noise. "Something's chasing me. Route 19, please." The rest of it dissolved. Static crawled back in, a hiss that filled every corner of the cab. My throat went dry. I looked out at the taillights ahead. "Still there. Steady." I pressed the transmitter. "Copy that. You said Route 19? What's your location?" The radio stayed quiet for a beat. Then the voice came back, trembling now, behind me. "Can't see it. It's fast." The way he said it, not loud, not panicked, just certain. Like he already knew what would happen next. I turned my headlights up. The fog lit like smoke. Those 2 taillights flickered, then steadied again. "Keep talking," I said, hand tight around the mic. "Tell me what you see." He didn't answer. Just breathing, close to the receiver. Slow, uneven, then a low scrape of static. Almost like something dragging metal across pavement. "It's beside me." The radio cracked, louder now. The static turned sharp, a hiss that burned in my ears. I pressed the mic again. "Hey, you still there?" No answer. Only the hum of the engine and the faint electric buzz from the radio. I looked up. The taillights were closer now. Too close. Like the truck ahead had slowed down, a shape moved between them, a shadow crossing the red glow. Then it was gone. I couldn't tell if it was the fog or something in it. My fingers hovered over the dial. I tried again. "Breaker 19, you copy?" Nothing. Just static. Then, one last burst. Short. A whisper pressed between the noise. "Don't stop." The line went dead. The red taillights flickered once more. Then both of them snapped out. Gone. The road ahead was empty. No tire marks, no debris. Just fog stretching on forever. I slowed down, eyes scanning the darkness. Every part of me told me not to stop, but I couldn't look away. The CB radio hissed again, soft, almost gentle. A single breath in the static. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't his. It was something else. Breathing, close to the speaker, as if it had found the channel we were on. I turned it off. But the static didn't stop. It stayed, faint, like it had sunk into the air around me. I pressed my foot on the gas, heart pounding in the quiet. The fog swallowed everything behind me. Even the road seemed smaller, thinner. For a long time, I didn't touch the radio again. Didn't dare. But hours later, when the sky began to pale and the static had faded completely, I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. 2 red dots in the distance, too high to be headlights, too still to be stars, and then they blinked once, in perfect rhythm with the radio light that I swear I'd turned off. It was just past midnight. The highway stretched out in front of me, black, endless, empty. Fog pressed low against the ground, curling over the painted lines like smoke. I kept the radio on just to have something in the air besides the hum of the tires. But every station was the same. Static, soft, broken static, like wind tangled in wires. At first, I thought the antenna was bad. I turned the dial slowly, each click a small echo in the silence. The static rose and fell, a living thing. And beneath it, something faint. Whispers. Too soft to understand. Too human to ignore. I leaned closer. My hand brushed the cold metal of the dial and the voice came through. A breath between the noise. "Don't stop." The hairs on my arms lifted. I froze, fingers hovering over the knob. The radio crackled again. Another whisper. Louder this time. "Don't look." Then, silence. The kind that swallows you whole. The kind that makes your heartbeat sound wrong. I stared at the road. The fog had thickened, turning the world into a blur of gray and pale light. The radio hissed once more like it was breathing with me. Then, nothing. I should have turned it off, but I didn't. I just listened, waiting for the voice to return. The air in the car felt heavier now, damp, cold enough that the windows began to fog from the inside. My headlights reached only a few feet ahead, the beam catching the edges of trees that looked like shapes of people watching from the dark. Then, movement. Something pale crossed the road. I barely caught it in the light. A figure. Walking slow, unsteady. Its shape didn't make sense. Too thin, too long in the arms, its head tilted, like it was listening for something beneath the sound. I eased my foot off the gas. The tires whispered against the asphalt. The radio began to hum again, a low vibration matching the rhythm of my pulse. The whisper returned. Only one word this time. Drive! I gripped the wheel tighter. My throat felt dry. The pale figure stopped at the edge of the road. Didn't turn. Didn't move, just waited. The static grew louder. It filled the car, pressing against my chest, against my skin, until it felt like the air itself was shaking. The figure turned its head. Slow. Bones creaking in the quiet. Its face caught the light for just a second. Empty. Smooth. No eyes. No mouth, only skin. Pale as fog. The radio screamed. Not a voice, not static, just pure white noise that burned in my ears. I pressed my foot down hard. The wheels spun, the fog split apart. The figure vanished behind me, the hum faded. The static softened, then stopped. Silence again. The road stretched on, dark and endless, like nothing had ever been there. I turned the radio off. The quiet felt safer somehow. But after a few minutes, as the fog began to thin and the world turned faintly blue with approaching dawn, the speakers clicked. A single whisper slipped through. Clear this time. Too late. Then the radio went dead. And in the reflection of the windshield, just above my shoulder, a pale outline leaned forward as if to listen. It was a long stretch of highway. Flat. Empty. Only the faint glow of my headlights cutting through the dark. The clock on the dash said 1:47 a.m. The air outside was still, too still. I'd been driving for hours. No exits, no cars. Just mile markers counting down the distance to nowhere. I remember the first time I saw it. Mile marker 13. Bent slightly at the base, the numbers faded, as if something had rubbed them smooth. I glanced at my odometer. 187 miles. The numbers clicked softly, and then they froze. When I looked again, they had reset to 0. I thought maybe the cluster had glitched. Old car, old wiring. I kept driving. A few minutes later, the same sign appeared ahead. Mile marker 13, same lean. Same scratched paint. Same strip of fog curling around the guardrail. I slowed down, looked in the mirror. The road behind me was straight. No turns, no loops. But the sign was there again, waiting. The odometer read 0 once more. My fingers tightened around the wheel. The engine hummed, low and steady, as if it didn't notice anything was wrong. I drove past the sign again, and again, each time the same stretch of asphalt returned. Same cracked patch in the right lane, same cluster of dead trees, same silence pressing in from both sides. Only one thing changed. The shadows. They stood just beyond the guardrail, faint against the pale light. At first I thought it was the reflection of trees, branches caught in the beam of my headlights, but trees don't shift like that. They don't lean forward when you slow down. By the third pass, I counted 4 of them. Tall. Still. Each one standing in a slightly different place. My pulse matched the hum of the tires. I turned the radio on, hoping for static, anything to fill the quiet. Nothing came through. Just a low, hollow buzz, like the air itself was trembling. I pressed the gas harder. The engine groaned. The world smeared into gray and motion, but the next sign I saw was still mile marker 13. The odometer clicked, and reset again, 0. This time, the shadows were closer. Right up against the guardrail now. 5 of them, their edges rippling like smoke. One leaned just enough for the light to touch its shape. No face. No color. Just an outline. A person without skin or sound. My throat went dry. I tried not to blink. Tried not to look too long. The air inside the car grew thick, the smell of dust and cold metal filling my lungs. Even breathing made noise. I told myself I'd stop at the next exit. Find someone. Ask what road I'd taken wrong. But there were no exits. Only darkness folding in and the same broken sign waiting ahead. The odometer zeroed out again, and this time, I didn't see the shadows at first. Not by the guardrail. Not along the trees. They were standing closer. Right by the road. Their forms clearer now. Hands, arms, shoulders. Still moving, but without sound. Like something pretending to remember how people stand. The fog crawled across the hood. The headlights flickered. When they came back, one of the shadows was gone. My chest tightened. Every nerve screamed to stop. But the voice in my head whispered, "Don't, just keep driving." I gripped the wheel and focused on the lines beneath the car. They blurred, bent, and then the sign appeared again. Mile marker 13. The numbers glowed faintly now as if they were lit from underneath. I didn't look at the odometer. Didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. 0. The shadows were gone. All of them. But the air felt full, as if the car wasn't empty anymore. Something moved behind me. A soft shift in the back seat. No breath, no sound, just weight, settling in. I didn't turn around. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. The road ahead stretched into fog, and at the edge of the light, the next sign appeared. Mile marker 13. The odometer reset, and the whisper, low, steady, almost kind, came from just behind my ear. Keep going. It was late, sometime after 2. The road narrowed to a single lane, and the bridge rose out of the mist like a rib cage. Bridge hollow, that's what the faded sign said. Letters half gone, metal bent, the rest swallowed by vines and fog. The air changed as soon as I drove onto it. Colder. Heavier. The kind of air that sits against your skin and doesn't move. The first few feet were fine. Then the fog thickened. It came up from below the bridge, pouring over the guardrails like breath rising from something asleep beneath the river. The headlights could only reach a few feet ahead. Beyond that, white, endless white. I slowed down, hands tight on the wheel. The tires hummed softly against the wet concrete. The sound echoed back at me, muted and close, as if the fog itself was listening. The bridge seemed longer than it should have been. Each second stretched thin. Each breath came out small and shallow. I kept my eyes on the faint Y. Yellow lines, watching them disappear under the fog, one by one. Something in the air buzzed. A low vibration, like static behind glass. It pulsed in rhythm with the engine, then faded. I didn't know how far I'd gone. It felt like I'd been crossing for hours. No end, no shape. Only the pale glow of the dashboard and the slow tick of the turn signal I hadn't turned on. My hands were cold. I turned off the blinker. The noise stopped, but the ticking didn't. It came from somewhere else now. Inside the fog, soft, irregular, like footsteps. I looked at the mirror. Nothing behind me but the red glow of my tail lights, spilling into the mist and disappearing. The bridge creaked under the weight of the car. Something shifted below. A hollow groan, long and deep. Water moving, maybe, or something in it. I told myself not to stop. Not here. The fog pressed harder against the windshield. It blurred the edges of everything. The world folding in until all that was left was me and the faint hum of the engine. I glanced at the rearview mirror again. Habit, maybe. Just for a second. There was someone in the back seat. A shape, faint at first, like a trick of the light. But then it moved, ahead, tilted slightly to the side, watching. My stomach turned cold. The air inside the car changed, still dense as if it had stopped breathing with me. I didn't move. Didn't turn around. My eyes stayed on the mirror, locked on that faint outline sitting in the dark. It didn't blink, didn't shift, just sat there, quiet, head leaning to one side like it was curious. The fog outside pulsed against the glass. Each flash of pale light made the shape clearer. The curve of a shoulder, the bend of an arm resting against the seat. No face, just shadow. I wanted to speak, to ask who it was, but my voice wouldn't come. My throat felt closed, like something was pressing gently against it from the inside. The mirror trembled. My breath fogged the windshield. The hum in the air grew louder, a low vibration that crawled through the steering column and into my hands. I blinked, and the shape was gone. The fog outside didn't move, but the car felt different, heavier, weighted. I didn't dare look back. Didn't dare check the mirror again. The ticking returned, steady this time, like a clock counting something down. When the bridge finally ended, the road beyond it looked exactly the same. Same lines, same fog, same hum in the distance. I drove faster. Didn't think. Didn't breathe. And when I finally looked, just once, just to be sure, the mirror showed nothing. But in the reflection of the windshield, faint and pale against the glass, a head leaned forward from the back seat. Still tilted, still watching, and in the air between breaths, a whisper, soft and careful, barely touching the silence. You made it across. The fog followed me the rest of the way. It was early morning, the kind of gray that doesn't know if it's night or day. Fog hung low across the highway, spreading like smoke over the asphalt. I was driving slow. Empty road. No other cars for miles. Just the hum of the tires and the faint static from the radio that refused to find a station. That's when I saw it. Something small, dark, just off the shoulder. At first I thought it was a glove, then a wallet. When I stopped and stepped out, the cold air felt wet against my skin. And there it was. A notebook. Black leather, edges frayed, pages swollen from rain. There was a name on the inside cover. Officer D.H. Carver, Highway Patrol. The first few pages were neat. Dates, times, routine notes, traffic stops, accidents. Nothing unusual. But halfway through, the handwriting changed. The lines grew shaky, uneven, and the words stopped sounding like reports. They're back near marker 12 again, one entry read. Tall shapes in the fog. Standing still, watching cars pass. I sat there on the hood of my car, flipping through the pages, breath visible in the cold. The highway stretched silent behind me. Not a single bird. Not even the wind. The next entry was shorter. The same shapes. Tonight they moved closer. One stepped onto the shoulder. When I looked directly at it, it disappeared. The ink was smeared at the edges, like it had been written with a shaking hand. The farther I read, the worse the handwriting became. Letters broke apart. Sentences trailed off. Some words were pressed too hard, cutting into the paper. He started counting things. 3 near marker 8. 5 near marker 9. Too many at 12. There were sketches, too. Rough, dark shapes with no faces. Just long smudges, like shadows that refused to stay flat. Something about them made my chest feel tight. I looked up from the notebook, out at the fog stretching across the highway. The road was quiet, but I could feel something there. Not movement, not sound, just attention. I told myself it was nothing. Kept reading. One entry stood out. Different ink. He'd written it at night, maybe, by flashlight or patrol car light. I stopped near marker 13 again. They were waiting. Closer than before. I think they know I can see them. There was a pause in the writing, a long blank space, and then underneath it, smaller letters. They look like people until you blink. I ran my thumb along the edge of the paper. The corner was torn, as if someone had tried to rip out the rest of the page but stopped halfway. A few pages later, the entries stopped being reports at all. Just fragments. Too many eyes. Can't see the faces. Don't look at them in the mirror. The final page was dated 3 weeks ago. Ink darker than the rest, pressed deep. One followed me home. Nothing else after that. Just a long streak where the pen had dragged off the page. The fog outside had thickened. It had crept in so quietly that I hadn't noticed until I couldn't see the guardrail anymore. I closed the notebook, held it against my chest. The air felt heavier now, like it was pushing down from all sides. In the mirror, the fog rolled behind the car in waves, soft, slow, alive. For a moment, I thought I saw something standing by the mile marker, a dark shape, too tall, too still. I blinked. It was gone. But when I looked again, the fog closer to the car had changed. A faint outline in the whiteness, just behind me. No face, no color. Only the suggestion of shoulders and the tilt of a head. My pulse thudded in my ears. I started the engine. The hum filled the silence, but it didn't drown out the feeling. As I drove away, the notebook sat on the passenger seat. It felt heavier than before, like something inside it was still alive, breathing between the pages. At mile marker 13, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The fog behind me was moving again, folding in on itself, curling like smoke around a shape that shouldn't have been there. I didn't stop, didn't look again, but when I got home that night, the notebook wasn't on the seat anymore. Only a faint smear of wet ink remained, a single line traced across the leather where it had been. It read, in the same unsteady handwriting, "One followed you too. It was just after midnight, the kind of quiet that feels too wide. No cars ahead, no lights behind. The road stretched straight through an ocean of fields, bare, cold, and silver under the moon. I'd been driving for hours, headlights cutting through the stillness. Radio low, a whisper of static just to fill the silence. Then, without warning, the engine coughed. A small jerk under the hood, and everything, lights, air, sound, just stopped. The wheels stiffened in my hands. The dashboard went black. The radio went dead. I was left in the middle of nowhere, wrapped in a silence so thick it pressed against my chest. I turned the key again. Once, twice. Nothing. The air felt strange, heavy, like it had weight to it. I could see my breath fog the glass, even though it wasn't cold enough for that. For a long moment, I just sat there, my fingers on the key, listening to the emptiness pressing in. Then I stepped out. The gravel shifted under my shoes. Each crunch echoed too loud. The fields stretched forever in both directions, the horizon a pale smudge of gray. The hood clicked open easily, as if the car wanted me to look. Inside, nothing obvious. No smoke, no smell of burning, just the faint metallic scent of stillness. The world around me didn't move. No wind, no rustle of grass. Even the insects had gone quiet. And then, a breath, soft, drawn out. Coming from the ditch just a few feet away. It wasn't mine. I froze. Held my breath to be sure. There it was again. Slow, uneven, wet. Someone, or something, was breathing, just out of sight. I leaned a little closer to the edge of the road. The ditch was dark, the kind of black that eats the light. My eyes tried to adjust, but the moon gave nothing away. It came again. In, out, in. Closer now. My heartbeat filled my ears. I told myself it could be an animal. A deer, maybe? Or a coyote. But the breath sounded wrong. Too deliberate. Too human, I whispered. Hello? No answer, only silence and then a soft shuffle in the grass. I took a step back. The air shifted. It felt like someone standing behind me, watching. The breathing stopped, and for a moment I almost wished it hadn't. I turned toward the car, hands shaking as I reached for the door. The handle felt colder than before, colder than the air. I climbed in, locked it, and stared straight ahead. The dashboard was still dead. No glow, no hum, but I could see my reflection faintly in the windshield, and behind it, movement, a ripple. Something passing along the edge of the ditch. The fog was starting to roll in. Thin at first, then thicker, spilling onto the road like smoke. Through it, a shape began to rise. Tall, unclear. The outline of shoulders, arms, a head tilted too far to the side. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. Then it sank back down as if melting into the ground. Gone. The silence returned, but heavier. Like it was holding its breath now, too. I turned the key one last time. The engine sputtered, coughed, then caught. The headlights flickered back on. For half a second, they lit the ditch. There was nothing there, just the fog swirling slowly over the grass. I drove off without looking again. Didn't check the mirrors. Didn't breathe until the road curved away and the fields disappeared behind me. But even as the hum of the engine returned, I could still hear it. That faint, wet breathing. Only this time. It wasn't outside, it was somewhere behind me, soft, steady, right next to my ear. The fog had rolled in thick that night. Too thick. It swallowed the road ahead until only the white lines existed, stretching into nothing. My headlights barely reached a few feet forward. Everything beyond was gray and shifting, like the air itself was breathing. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. No houses, no exits. Just this long, empty highway that seemed to move without me. Then, two faint lights appeared in the distance. Headlights. Soft, blurred by the fog. But real. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief. Finally, someone else out here. I pressed down gently on the gas, following their glow. They flickered once, twice, like the driver was hitting a patch of mist. The road curved, and for a moment, the lights disappeared. Then they came back, a little brighter now. I tried to keep a steady distance. Didn't want to tail too close. Just wanted to know I wasn't alone. The fog shifted again. The lights dimmed, then blinked out completely. I slowed. The emptiness in front of me was sudden, unnatural, like something had been erased from the world. Then they came back, closer this time. Hovering lower than before, I frowned, squinted. The road dipped slightly, and for the first time I noticed the beams weren't hitting the ground. They just floated there. Two glowing orbs, too bright, too still. The steering wheel felt slick under my palms. The hum of the tires seemed to fade until all I could hear was the low static in my ears. I told myself it had to be fog distortion. Or my eyes. I'd been driving too long. But when I blinked, the lights blinked back, like they were aware of me. The distance between us didn't change. No matter how fast I drove, they stayed exactly where they wanted to be, always just ahead, always waiting. Then for a brief second, I saw the outline of a car around them, dark, faint, as if drawn with smoke. A back window. The curve of a trunk. A license plate, blank. I leaned forward, trying to make out the shape, and then it vanished. No car. No outline. Only the two lights hanging in the fog. They moved now, drifting toward the side of the road, slow, inviting. Something about it felt wrong. But curiosity is louder than fear when you're alone. I followed. The white lines ended. The asphalt turned to gravel. The fog thickened so much I could barely see the edge of my own hood. Then the engine stuttered. The headlights flickered, for an instant. I saw the orbs clearly. Not yellow, not white, but something in between, a pale glow, like the reflection of eyes catching a beam that shouldn't exist. They pulsed once, twice, then went out. The road fell dark. I sat there, my hand on the key, heart slowing to match the silence. Somewhere in the fog, I thought I heard movement, soft, dragging, something brushing across gravel. I turned the key. The car started, but the lights didn't come back on. The darkness around me felt thicker now, heavier, like it was waiting for something. And then they appeared again. Not in front of me this time, but in the rearview mirror, two pale orbs, close, too close, hovering just behind the back seat. I didn't turn around. I just stared at the mirror, watching as the glow brightened until it filled the car like a slow breath. The fog outside pressed harder against the windows. The engine idled quietly, but the air inside felt colder, like something had opened the door without moving it. Then, a whisper. So faint I almost missed it. Keep driving. The lights dimmed. The fog pulled back. The road reappeared empty as before. I drove until the horizon turned blue with dawn. Didn't stop once. But sometimes, when the mist is heavy and the road feels endless, I still see them. Two lights in the fog, waiting just ahead, blinking in and out like eyes that never close. The patrol station sat at the edge of the highway. Nothing but the hum of the fluorescent light above and the soft crackle of the radio on the desk. It was late. Too late for traffic. Too late for company. The others had gone hours ago. I was alone. Just me, the static, and the cold coffee cooling beside my hand. The fog outside pressed against the windows, thick and pale, making the world look smaller than it should. That's when the radio clicked. A faint pop. Then a voice. It was low, breathless. A man trying not to sound afraid. "This is Unit 7, he said. "I've got something on the road." I sat up, my chair groaning softly against the floor. The signal was weak, washed in static, but the tone was clear. That kind of steady panic that doesn't fade. "Looks like a person," he said. "Can't tell. Can't tell if they're standing or—" The voice broke, a rush of static swallowing his words. Then, silence. I checked the clock. 2:17 a.m. No patrols were scheduled tonight. No one should have been on that channel. The radio crackled again. "This is Unit 7. It's still there. The same words. The same inflection. The same breath between syllables. It was looping, a recording, old. I flipped through the logbook, my finger tracing the faded names. Unit 7. Officer D. Collar. He'd gone missing 11 years ago. The file was still in the cabinet. An open case. Final note. Vehicle found abandoned, engine running, driver's door open. The radio hissed softly. Then the voice returned. "This is Unit 7. It's still there." The same line. Over and over. Each time a little clearer, a little closer. I turned the dial down, but the words bled through like they were inside the room now. "It's on the road." I could hear the tremor in his voice, the shift from confusion to fear. "Closer now," he whispered. Can't see its face. I froze. That line wasn't part of the old transcript. I knew that call by heart. I'd heard it played once during training, a warning about radio interference and isolation. But that line, that wasn't in it. The air in the room felt heavier. Still. I leaned closer to the mic. My breath fogged the plastic cover. "Unit 7, I said quietly. "Do you copy?" Static. Then a slow exhale through the speaker, like someone breathing too close to the mic. "Don't go outside," he said. The lights flickered once. The fog outside seemed to press harder against the glass, curling like smoke trying to get in. I turned off the radio. The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt watchful. Then, a single click. The radio turned itself back on. The voice came again. Quieter this time, like he was standing further away. I thought it was gone. I looked toward the window. The fog had shifted. Shapes moved in it. Slow, heavy shapes that didn't look like mist. The voice spoke again, but softer now, regretful. I shouldn't have stopped. The final words on the recording. Always had been, but this time something else followed. It followed me here. The light above me flickered again. Once. Twice. Then went out completely. The room sank into darkness. I could still hear the radio, a faint hum, a pulse between frequencies, then a new sound, wet, shallow, breathing, not from the speaker. From the corner of the room, I didn't turn, didn't speak. I just sat there listening to the static and the slow rhythm of a breath that wasn't mine. The next morning, they said the patrol station was empty. Radio still on. The same recording playing. "This is Unit 7. I've got something on the road." And beneath it, if you listen close enough, you can still hear another voice. Quiet, familiar, whispering back. "Don't go outside." The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It came down in sheets. Thin, cold lines cutting through the night. The highway shimmered beneath the pale wash of my headlights, and the wipers dragged slowly across the windshield, each pass leaving a streak that never quite cleared. It was late. Too late to be anywhere. I kept my eyes on the road, hands resting on the wheel, the hum of the tires a steady, hollow rhythm. That's when I saw them. A figure standing at the edge of the road. Still, almost too still. A thin frame beneath a soaked gray coat, one arm raised, thumb pointing toward nowhere. For a moment, I thought about passing. No one in their right mind picked up strangers out here, but the rain, the loneliness, it got to me. I slowed down. The headlights swept across the figure. Their face flashed pale in the glow, colorless, expressionless. I stopped beside them. They didn't move right away, just stood there, as if listening to something in the rain. Then, without a word, they opened the door and slipped inside. The air shifted, a cold breath filling the car. They sat in the back seat, folding their hands in their lap. Water dripped from their coat, pooling quietly on the floor mat. I pulled back onto the highway. The engine murmured, and the world outside blurred into gray streaks and shadow. We didn't speak. They didn't ask where I was headed, and I didn't ask where they'd come from. For a while, it was almost peaceful, just rain and road. But then, I noticed something. In the rearview mirror, their head was tilted slightly down, as if watching their own reflection in the window. Their skin looked too light, almost translucent. Every few miles, I glanced back again. They never shifted, never blinked, just sat there. A pale outline in the dark. The heater was on, but the air around me felt colder than before. At one point, I thought I saw their lips move. Not words, just a slow exhale, like breath trying to remember what it felt like to be alive. I turned the radio on, static. No stations came through, only faint whispers between the noise. The figure didn't react. I tried to clear my throat. It came out hoarse. "Long night," I said quietly. No response, only the rain tapping against the roof. After a while, the fog began to roll in again, thick and white, closing around the car like a slow tide. The road disappeared. Just two lines of light stretching forward into nothing, and in the mirror, they were gone. The seat behind me was empty, but the seatbelt was still buckled, pulled tight, swaying slightly, as if something invisible still rested against it. I pulled over. The wipers dragged once more and stopped mid-swipe. The rain softened to a whisper, then to nothing. I turned slowly in my seat. Empty. Just that seatbelt. Still fastened, still trembling like it remembered movement. A single drop of water slid down the buckle. Cold, clear. I reached for it. My hand stopped halfway. The air felt wrong. Too still, too thick. Outside, the fog pressed against the glass. Shapes formed for a heartbeat. A shoulder, a hand, a face, then gone. The radio flicked on again by itself. Static filled the car, low and uneven, like breathing through wires. Somewhere inside it, a voice, soft, distant. "Thank you for stopping." The words barely formed. They felt more like a memory than sound. I watched the seatbelt. It loosened slowly, unbuckling on its own, and fell silent against the seat. I didn't drive again for a long time. But sometimes, on quiet roads in heavy rain, I still see them, just ahead in the beam of my headlights. A figure waiting, hand raised, face pale against the dark, and every time, I tell myself I won't stop. But I always do. The neon sign above the gas station flickered weakly. One letter stayed dark, buzzing faintly beneath the rain. It was past midnight, the kind of hour where the air feels too still, too heavy, like time itself has stopped paying attention. I pulled in, tires rolling through puddles, engine humming low. The station sat alone at the edge of Route 9, surrounded by open fields and a black sky that seemed endless. The lights above the pumps hummed. Cold, unsteady. Inside, the attendant stood behind the counter, a thin man with tired eyes, hands tucked into the front of his jacket. He looked up as I entered. Didn't speak at first, just nodded, like he'd been waiting for someone. I paid for gas, and as he counted change, he said quietly, "You're not planning to take Route 9 tonight, are you?" His voice carried something I couldn't place. Not fear exactly. More like warning. I hesitated. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He glanced toward the glass doors. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and fog was beginning to crawl in from the fields. He didn't answer right away. just looked out, watching the way the mist swallowed the road. Then he said, "Don't go that way after midnight." I tried to laugh it off. He didn't. "People say a lot of things about this stretch," I said. He shook his head. "I've seen it," he whispered. "A man walking along the shoulder. But not a man exactly." The lights above us flickered, a faint hum breaking into static. He took a slow breath. "When I first started working nights here, I thought I was just tired, that I was seeing shapes in the fog. But one night, I saw him clear as you standing there. I didn't move. He had no face," he said. "Just skin. Smooth, like clay that never set." His words felt heavy, the kind that don't fade after they're spoken. I could hear the clock ticking behind him. The fluorescent light buzzed again, then went silent for a beat too long. When it came back on, he was still staring out the window. "He walks the same stretch," he continued softly, "between mile markers 17 and 19. Always the same, always in the fog." I followed his gaze. Outside, the road was nothing but pale gray mist and a few glints of wet asphalt. The man rubbed his hands together slowly, like they'd gone cold. "Some drivers say he's looking for a ride," he said. "They see him raise a hand, and when they pass, their headlights bend, like they're shining through water." I didn't know what to say. He looked down at the counter, voice low. "I think he used to be real. Maybe an officer. There was an accident years ago. A patrol car overturned out there. No one ever found the body." The fog pressed harder against the windows now, thick and moving slow, as if something inside it was breathing. The attendant's reflection trembled faintly in the glass. "You should stay here a while," he said. "Wait till the sun comes up." I nodded, but I knew I wouldn't. He handed me the receipt with a shaking hand. For a second, our eyes met. His looked distant, as if he could already see something forming out there in the dark. When I stepped back outside, the air was colder. The lights over the pumps flickered once, then steadied into a dim white glow. I filled the tank quickly. Every few seconds, I glanced toward the road. The fog moved like it had weight, like it knew I was watching. When I turned back toward the store, the attendant was gone. The glass door stood half open. The lights inside still on but empty. Only the hum of the sign remained, cutting faintly through the mist. I looked down Route 9 one last time. At first, there was nothing. Just fog and rain, then a figure stepped into view, far away. Walking along the shoulder, slowly, no features, no face, just a pale shape moving through gray. I closed the car door. Locked it. The headlights flickered as I started the engine. For a moment, I thought I saw that same smooth reflection glide across the windshield. By the time I looked again, the road was empty. Still, as I drove away, I kept my eyes on the mirrors, and though the fog swallowed everything behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still walking there, following the lines of Route 9, waiting for someone to stop. The rain had stopped an hour ago. But the road still shimmered. Black glass stretching into the dark. It was late. Too late for any other cars. I was driving north, through the old patrol routes, where the fields pressed close and the fog hung just above the ground. That's when I saw it. A patrol car, parked on the shoulder, engine idling, lights still flashing in slow, steady blinks of red and blue. I slowed down. There was no one else for miles. The driver's door was shut. The windows fogged from the inside, but the exhaust puffed faintly from the tailpipe. Soft, steady breaths in the cold. I pulled over behind it, hesitant. The kind of hesitation that feels like your body knows something before your mind does. I stepped out, boots sinking into damp gravel. The air smelled of rain and oil. For a long moment, I just watched the lights roll over the road, painting the fog red, then blue, then red again. I called out once. No answer, just the hum of the cruiser, and the faint hiss of its radio. It wasn't static exactly, more like something whispering through static. A thin voice, repeating itself, words too low to catch. I walked closer. The driver's seat was empty. Door still locked, keys still in the ignition, wipers moving slowly, even though there was nothing left to clear. My reflection bent in the window. Behind it, the dash lights glowed pale green, and the radio, it kept hissing, like it was struggling to find someone still listening. I leaned closer, and the temperature seemed to drop. Every breath I took fogged the glass in thick white swirls. The cruiser's headlights cast long silver beams through the fog, and in that light the trees looked alive, like they were swaying closer. I moved toward the front of the car. Looked inside again. That's when I saw it. In the rearview mirror, someone was sitting in the back seat, still, facing forward. Their head slightly tilted. I froze. They didn't move, didn't turn, just sat there. The breath caught in my throat. I took a step back, the gravel crunching beneath me louder than it should have been. The radio crackled again. A single burst of noise, then silence, then softly, a voice. "Don't stop!" My heart slowed, like it didn't want to draw attention to itself. The back door of the patrol car was locked, the window fogged, but I could still see the outline of the figure through the glass. Broad shoulders, hands resting on their knees, completely still. I whispered something I don't remember. Maybe just the word, hello. No answer. The radio hissed again, louder, closer. "He's still out here." My hands were shaking now. Not from cold, from that quiet, heavy kind of fear. The kind that settles behind your ribs and waits. I stepped back toward my car. The patrol cruiser stayed running, lights pulsing, wipers dragging slowly across the windshield. When I opened my door, I looked back one last time. The rear seat was empty, no shadow. No outline, just the slow swing of the seatbelt strap, moving side to side like someone had just gotten out. The radio whispered again, barely audible through the hum of the engine. "Officer, down!" Then, nothing. The lights flickered once. The cruiser's engine coughed, and the headlights went dark. I stood there in the silence, watching the fog close in around it. It was as if the car had never been there at all. When I finally drove away, the mirrors stayed black. No red, no blue, no movement. But for the rest of the drive, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was sitting just behind me, watching the road ahead, through the same empty reflection, still waiting for someone else to stop. It was almost midnight. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the road was still wet enough to catch every bit of light and twist it. I'd been driving too long. The map had rerouted twice, and the highway signs ahead blurred into streaks of white and green. When I saw the exit, I took it without thinking. No name, just a faded number, half covered in mud. The ramp curved down, softly, slowly, then circled back under the bridge. For a moment, it felt normal. But when I merged again, I was back where I started. Same cracked sign, same looping curve, same hollow feeling in my chest. I thought maybe I'd missed a turn. So I tried again. Took the exit slower this time. Let the tires hum against the painted line, but it just kept turning. Round and round, the road folding into itself like it didn't want to let me go. I could feel the air thickening. The fog rolled low across the ground, coiling around the guardrails like smoke from something still burning. The third time around, I noticed it. Someone standing by the sign. A dark outline, still as stone, facing the road. I blinked, and the headlights flickered across its shape. Tall, thin, hands hanging just past the knees. My stomach tightened. I gripped the wheel harder and drove past without slowing. When I looked in the mirror, the figure was still there, watching. The ramp looped again. My clock hadn't changed. The same minute repeating. I tried to shake the feeling, but it was like the air had stopped moving. Even the rain that lingered on the windshield didn't slide down anymore. As I came around the curve, I saw it again. The figure was closer now, standing at the edge of the shoulder. Its head tilted slightly like it was trying to see inside. My breath caught. My chest felt hollow. Every instinct told me not to look. The car hummed softly, engine low and uneasy. I didn't blink until I passed it again. But the road didn't change. The loop held me, tight. The fourth time, it was standing right beside the guardrail, close enough for the fog to brush against its legs. I could see now. It wasn't wearing anything bright. Just pale skin, shining faintly under the headlights. I pressed harder on the gas, but the ramp stretched longer. The car moved slower, as if the road itself was pulling against the tires. The steering wheel felt slick in my hands. Every breath came shallow, and cold air crawled through the vents. The fifth loop began. And I didn't want to look this time, but I did. It stood right on the white line, facing me, waiting. My throat tightened. Its face, if it had one, was blurred by the fog. Only the outline of where eyes should have been. I tried to turn back toward the highway, but the curve bent me again. Same loop, same sign, same air that felt too thin to breathe. My hands trembled on the wheel. Every nerve in my body was screaming to leave. Then, a sound, soft, sharp, like a fingertip tapping the glass, once, twice, right beside my ear. I froze. Didn't dare move. Didn't dare look. The tapping stopped, and the fog pressed closer against the window, pale and breathing. I turned the wheel hard. The tires screeched. The loop broke, the ramp disappearing into open dark. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped, but when I glanced in the rearview mirror, the passenger side seatbelt was buckled, swaying, as if someone had just sat down, and outside, through the mist, the exit sign waited. Same number, same road, still shining through the fog. It was late, the kind of late when the world feels hollow. When every sound stretches thin before it fades, the highway was empty. Just me, the low hum of the tires and the steady rhythm of the white lines flickering beneath the headlights. That's when I saw it, through the trees. A flicker of red and blue, sharp, rhythmic, cutting through the dark like a pulse. At first, I thought it was a patrol car. Maybe an accident. Maybe someone pulled over. But the lights weren't on the road. They were deeper in, between the trees, flickering against wet bark like veins of color breathing through the woods. I slowed down. The rain had turned to mist, and the wipers whispered back and forth across the glass. For a moment, I told myself to keep driving. Just pass it by. But curiosity can sound like a whisper, too, and it was louder than reason. I pulled over. The engine trembled once before it settled into a low, uneven hum. When I opened the door, the air bit cold against my face. The smell of damp earth and gasoline mixed in my breath. The lights were still flashing, red, then blue, then nothing. I stepped off the asphalt. My shoes sank slightly into the soft dirt, water pooling around the edges of each print. Branches arched above me, their shapes broken and twisted in the strobing light. Every few seconds, the world vanished into black. I kept walking, each step quieter than the last. The deeper I went, the less real it felt. The hum of the highway disappeared behind me, swallowed by the rustle of leaves and the faint hiss of static that seemed to come from nowhere. I could almost taste it, the metal in the air, the faint tang of ozone. The lights pulsed again, closer now, just beyond a line of bare trees. I expected to see the reflection off glass, the gleam of a car hood. Something, but there was no car. The ground was torn in places, mud slick and soft, as if tires had sunk and vanished. And then I saw it, not metal, not headlights, something else, a shape standing among the trees, still, almost too still. Its skin caught the red light, then blue, then white. Each color washed through it like it was made of fog. I froze. My breath caught halfway out of my chest. It wasn't wearing anything. Or maybe it was. The edges of it kept shifting. A blur between solid and light. The air around it hummed, like power lines in the distance. When it turned its head, the lights flickered faster. Almost frantic. Red, blue, white, black. The static grew sharper. I felt it in my teeth, like something vibrating deep in the jaw. I took one step back, then another. The ground felt too soft. The trees leaned closer, their shadows trembling in each pulse of color. It didn't move. Not toward me, not away, but I could feel its gaze. Cold, flat, pressing against my chest like a weight. The lights dimmed, slowly, until there was only one faint flicker of blue cutting through the dark. And then even that faded. No car. No sound, just the forest and the smell of ozone that lingered, burning faintly in the damp air. I turned and ran. Branches caught my jacket, snapping back behind me. The dirt gave way to gravel, then to asphalt. When I reached my car, the headlights were off. I hadn't turned them off. Inside, the air was warm. Too warm. And for a second, I thought I saw a red flash in the rearview mirror, then blue, then nothing. The radio hissed softly, as if a channel had opened, and something had started to breathe through it. I put the car in drive and didn't look back. But as the highway stretched ahead, the tree line still pulsed behind me, faint red, faint blue, like heartbeat light trapped between the trees. It was past midnight. The highway was empty, a long, unbroken stretch of black and pale light. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the mist still clung to the road, soft and silver under the headlights. I'd been driving for too long. Too tired to think, too awake to stop. When the sign appeared, it almost startled me. A rusted green board leaning sideways. Toll ahead 1 mile. I didn't remember a toll on this route, but I slowed anyway. Maybe I'd taken the wrong turn again. The air grew heavier, colder, the kind of cold that sinks through the seams of your jacket and settles inside your ribs. Ahead, a small booth stood alone, half swallowed by fog. Its yellow lights were dim, buzzing weakly like trapped insects. The lane stretched open. No gate, no arm, no movement. I pulled up beside it. The tires hissed against wet pavement, and the engine's hum filled the silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. The booth window was smudged, dark inside. No sign of anyone there, then. A shape moved, a slow lean forward like something rising out of shadow. The faint outline of a man, shoulders narrow, face hidden in the gloom. He didn't knock, didn't speak. Just lifted one hand, palm open, waiting. I froze. The air felt wrong, thick with something electrical, like a storm about to start. I rolled the window down halfway. The cold hit me instantly. My breath turned white in front of my face. "Sorry," I whispered. My voice felt too loud in the quiet. "Do I still need to pay?" The figure didn't answer. The hand stayed out, close enough now that I could see the fingers twitch. Thin, pale, as if they didn't belong to a living thing. Then came the sound. A low hiss, like static bleeding through an old radio. It grew from the booth, from the air, from him. When he spoke, it wasn't words. It was static given shape, crackling through the mist, rising and falling in uneven breaths. Every instinct told me to leave, but my body stayed still, like the car had anchored itself to the spot. The toll window slid open an inch. A gust of damp air brushed my face, carrying a smell, wet metal and something burnt. I reached into my pocket, hands trembling, and pulled out a few coins. When I placed them on his palm, the coins didn't make a sound. They didn't fall, didn't move, just disappeared into the shadow of his hand. The static grew louder. Almost angry then, the light above the booth flickered, once, twice, then died. The booth went black. I couldn't see him anymore. Only the faint reflection of my headlights on the glass. And something else. A blur behind it, shifting closer. I threw the car into gear. The tires spun on wet ground before catching. I didn't look back, but as I passed the booth, I saw movement in the rearview mirror. The booth lights flicked on again just for a second. He was still there, leaning forward, hand out, waiting for the next car that would never come. The radio crackled softly as I drove away. Static, low and steady. Then, beneath it, a faint voice whispered through, distorted, distant. Next time, "Don't stop!" The mist thickened again, swallowing the road behind me, and for miles I swore I could see that pale light flashing faintly in the rearview mirror, like the booth was still there calling me back. The night was still, cold enough that the steering wheel felt damp beneath my fingers. The highway stretched ahead in an endless ribbon of gray. The patrol car's headlights barely cut through the fog, soft beams swallowed as soon as they appeared. The radio hissed beside me, its glow the only warmth in the dark cabin. It was a quiet shift. Too quiet. Even the crickets had gone silent hours ago. I drove another mile before it came through. A crackle. Then a voice, low, urgent. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, requesting backup. Route 9, near the bridge." The transmission broke, then returned, faintly trembling. "There's someone in the road." Then static. I froze. There hadn't been a Unit 12 in years. At least, not one I'd ever worked with. I pressed the mic button. "Copy that, Unit 12. I'm nearby. What's your location exactly?" The reply came instantly, but layered under distortion, like words submerged underwater. "Can't see their face?" The radio hissed, then went dead. I waited, counted to 10. Nothing. I turned off the main road toward the old bridge. The fog thickened, clinging to the windshield like smoke. Each breath I took felt heavier, as if the air itself didn't want to be breathed. When I reached the bridge, the road was empty. No lights, no cars, just the faint hum of my engine and the whisper of wind through the reeds. The radio came alive again. "Dispatch, please respond." It was the same voice, but closer now, quieter, almost beside me. I lifted the mic slowly. "Unit 12? Who is this?" Silence, then a single drawn-out exhale. Static swallowing it halfway through. Something brushed against the side of the car. A soft scrape like fingertips trailing along the door. I turned the headlights toward the trees. Pale trunks gleamed in the fog. Nothing moved. The radio hissed again, but this time, no words. Just that same breath, steady and wet like it was inside the speaker. I shut the radio off. The silence that followed felt alive. I drove back to the station before dawn. Didn't speak. Didn't think. Just kept replaying that voice in my head. When I logged the report, the clerk frowned. "There's no Unit 12, he said quietly. "There hasn't been since 2005. I must have looked confused because he left and returned a minute later with an old folder. Yellowed edges. The paper inside fragile with time. He opened it for me. A patrol report dated March 11th, 2005, Unit 12. Officer Daniel Haynes. Last call logged at 2:14 a.m. Exact words recorded. Requesting backup. Route 9, near the bridge. There's someone in the road, the same call. Word for word. No one ever found him. The patrol car, the dash cam, everything disappeared with him that night." I closed the folder. The air in the room felt colder. The hum of the station lights grew distant, muffled by the pounding of my heartbeat. When I left my shift that morning, the fog was waiting again, thick and unmoving. As I passed the bridge, the radio flickered back to life. Even though it was switched off, a single voice whispered through the static. "Still waiting for backup." Then the channel went dead, and in the reflection of the rearview mirror just for a second, I thought I saw another patrol car idling on the shoulder. Lights on. Engine running. Empty. It was late when I took the overpass road. The kind of late that makes the air feel thick, where headlights only catch the edges of the world. The highway was empty. Just the low hum of the tires and the occasional flash of a sign swallowed by fog. I'd driven that stretch dozens of times before, but that night felt different. The mist clung lower, like it wanted to hide something. As I neared the overpass, the concrete pillars loomed out of the gray, cold, wet stone dripping from the last bit of rain. And that's when I saw it, a figure, standing at the top edge, perfectly still. Facing down toward the road, I slowed, my eyes trying to make sense of the shape. Dark coat, pale skin that caught the high beams just enough to glow. They didn't move. Not even when my car passed beneath. For a second, I thought they were about to jump, but they didn't. They just watched. I drove another half-mile before my hand stopped trembling. Told myself it was nothing, just someone waiting for a ride, or maybe a trick of the fog. But the thought stuck with me, that face, blank, maybe expressionless. I couldn't tell through the mist. I took the long way back, trying to avoid the overpass altogether. But every route led me there again, that same gray stretch of concrete hanging over the empty road. When I came around the bend, my stomach dropped. The figure was still there. Only this time, they were turned the other way, facing the opposite direction, facing me. They weren't leaning over the edge anymore, just standing, waiting. I slowed to a crawl, heart hammering against the steering wheel. The fog pulsed in the headlights, each breath of air moving it in waves. And through it I could see that the figure wasn't blinking, just staring straight ahead. At me, I drove faster. Didn't look back. But in the rearview mirror, the pale outline lingered. A small, distant shape atop the bridge, never moving, never shrinking from sight. When I got home, I couldn't shake it. That image, the tilt of the head, the curve of their shoulders, the stillness of it all. It was too real to be my imagination. The next morning, I tried to reason with myself. Maybe a statue? A maintenance worker? Something explainable. So I went back. The day was brighter, but the fog hadn't lifted completely. The road was quiet again, the kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for you to speak first. The overpass stood ahead, unchanged. No figure. No sign of anyone ever being there. I parked beneath it, stepped out, and looked up. The air tasted like metal and damp leaves. A slow drip fell from the concrete above. I waited, half expecting something to shift. A whisper, a footstep, nothing. I finally turned to leave and stopped. The ground behind me was wet. But across the thin layer of moisture, I could see footprints, small, bare, leading toward my car. I followed them with my eyes. They ended right at the driver's side door. I froze there for a long time, my breath trembling in the cold air. When I finally opened the door, the inside light flickered weakly. In the rearview mirror, through the reflection of the back window, I thought I saw someone standing by the overpass again, facing away, perfectly still, as if waiting for me to return. I blinked, and the mirror was empty. But every night since, when I drive that road, I see a figure at the edge of the fog, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, always standing, always waiting, facing the road, then the other way, as if watching both directions at once. It was sometime after midnight when the highway emptied completely. Just long stretches of asphalt, damp from the evening rain, reflecting the pale orange of the streetlights, the kind of silence that hums beneath everything. Steady, alive but never comforting. I'd been driving west, mile after mile, radio low, headlights slicing through a thin haze of fog. Then, everything stopped. The radio cut out first. A sharp burst of static, then nothing. A second later, the dashboard went black. Then the headlights. Gone. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Just gone! The world folded into darkness so sudden it made me gasp. No sound, no light, not even the faint buzz of electricity. The car rolled on for a few more seconds, tires whispering against the road, before it slowed to a stop. I turned the key. Nothing. No click. No life. Even the air around me felt wrong, like it had thickened somehow. I opened the door and the cold hit me. Wet, metallic, like the air before a storm. The silence outside was deeper. It pressed on my chest. I looked up the road. No headlights in either direction. The streetlights along the curve were dark too, each one swallowed by the black. It was as if the whole world had been unplugged. I sat there, half inside the car, half out, listening. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, measured, somewhere on the road ahead. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a trick of adrenaline and darkness. But they grew clearer, slow taps on wet asphalt. Getting closer, I froze. My breath shallow, the kind that fogs and vanishes too fast. The steps came to a stop a few feet in front of the car. I strained my eyes, but there was nothing. Not a shape. Not even a shadow. Then, one more step. This time, to the side, circling. The footsteps began to move around the car, slowly, deliberately, as if tracing its outline. I shut the door quietly and locked it. The sound of the click felt too loud. For a moment, the steps paused again, and then they started up once more. Closer now. Each one echoed slightly, like they were being taken barefoot on wet stone. My heart pounded. I kept staring at the mirrors, but they only showed my own faint reflection and the void behind it. Something brushed against the side of the car. A drag, a slow scrape, like fingers tracing the paint. I held my breath. The scrape reached the rear window, then stopped. Silence again, the kind that buzzes in your ears because you're listening too hard. I reached for my phone. Its screen stayed black. Even the flashlight refused to turn on. I sat there, hands shaking in my lap, trying not to blink, trying not to make a sound. Minutes passed. Or maybe seconds. Then out of nowhere, the headlights flared back on. Blinding, the radio screamed static for a heartbeat, then died again. In that single flash of light, I saw it, a figure, standing directly in front of the car, face pale, eyes wide like they'd been caught doing something they shouldn't. And then, darkness again. The power cut out once more, and the figure was gone. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually, the dashboard lights flickered weakly to life. The car started. Everything returned, as if nothing had happened. I drove until the city lights reappeared on the horizon. Didn't stop, didn't look back, but sometimes when I drive that road now, my headlights flicker for just a second, and in that blink of light, I swear I see footprints, wet, bare, trailing alongside the car before vanishing back into the dark. It was late afternoon when I found the map, folded between the seats of the car, edges yellowed, creases deep like it had been there for years. The kind of map people used before phones did the thinking. It smelled faintly of old paper and rain. When I opened it, dust lifted into the air and caught the light from the dashboard. The lines were faded, but one stood out, a narrow route drawn in red ink, marked with a name I didn't recognize, Hollow Road. I'd driven this area for years. There was no Hollow Road, not on any GPS, not on any sign, but there it was, clear as day. It curved off Highway 40, snaked into the woods, and ended near a place labeled The Clearing. Something about it pulled at me, that quiet kind of curiosity that doesn't feel like choice. So I turned off the main route, heading toward where the line began. The air outside had shifted, heavier, damp, smelling faintly of pine and something metallic. The road narrowed. The trees leaned closer. Branches scraped softly against the roof like fingertips dragging across it. And then, there it was. A faded wooden sign, half buried in vines. The paint nearly gone, but if you looked closely, you could still make out the letters. Hollow Ard. The map had been right. I drove slowly. The gravel beneath the tires was uneven, broken by patches of dirt and moss. Every so often, I'd pass a fence post or the corner of an old mailbox bent low to the ground. The air was quiet. Too quiet. Even the insects seemed to have stopped. It felt like the kind of silence that isn't empty, just waiting. The deeper I went, the darker it became. The sunlight thinned until it looked like thin smoke slipping between the branches. I kept glancing at the map on the passenger seat. The red line curved left, then right, then stopped at the edge of a clearing. When I reached the bend, I could feel it before I saw it. The road just ended, straight into a wall of trees. No trail, no turnoff, no clearing, just a dead end swallowed by the forest. I pulled over, left the engine running, and stepped out. The air was cold now, biting. My breath moved in small clouds. Leaves crunched under my boots. The ground felt soft, like it had been rained on recently, but the sky above was clear. I walked a few steps closer to the trees. The smell changed again, less like pine, more like old earth, wet and still. And that's when I noticed them. Shapes, lining the tree line, faint, barely visible through the shadows. They weren't moving, but they were there. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks in the low light. But as I stared, I could see the edges of them clearer, thin, tall, human-like, no faces, just outlines. They stood spaced evenly apart, like they were waiting for something. The wind picked up, Soft at first, then steady, carrying a faint rustle that didn't sound like leaves, more like breathing. I took a step back, and every shape in that line seemed to lean forward just slightly as if responding. My throat went dry. The air vibrated with that low hum, the one that happens when everything living decides to go still. I turned to get back in the car. When I looked at the map again, the red line was gone. The page was blank except for a faint gray stain where it had been. I didn't wait to understand it. I reversed down that road, headlights off, hands shaking on the wheel. When I finally reached the highway, the lights flickered, and the car filled with the normal hum of the world again. But the map, the old paper one, wasn't in the seat anymore. Just a faint, wet mark on the fabric where it had been. Sometimes, when I drive near that stretch of road, my GPS glitches for a second. The route reroutes itself, and for just a blink, I see it appear again. Hollow road, and beyond it, a clearing that's waiting for me to come back. It was late, past midnight. The highway stretched ahead in a single silver line, cutting through fog and empty fields. The hum of the tires was the only thing keeping me company. That soft, constant vibration you stop noticing after a while. I'd been driving for hours, too tired to think, too awake to stop. The windows were rolled up, the air inside still and cold, and my reflection floated faintly in the glass beside me. That's when I saw it. Not in the road, in the window. Something running alongside the car. At first, I thought it was just the blur of trees, the streaks of shadow flickering across the glass. But then it kept pace, perfectly, right beside the reflection of my door. Arms pumping, legs moving as if sprinting to keep up. Only! The road outside was empty. Nothing there. Just fog and the pale stripes flashing by. I looked again, slower this time, leaning toward the glass. It was clearer now. A shape. Human, maybe. Tall. Its head tilted slightly toward me as it ran. The reflection flickered with the rhythm of the passing lights. Every second it seemed a little closer. My throat tightened. My hands gripped the steering wheel too hard. The car felt suddenly small, like the air inside had thickened. I glanced out again. Still nothing outside. But in the window, it was there, running. Closer. Its arms didn't swing right. Too stiff, too long, like its joints bent the wrong way. I blinked. And for a moment, its face turned toward me. But where eyes should have been, there was only darkness. A deep, colorless hollow that seemed to pull at the reflection around it. The road began to curve, and the thing in the window curved with it, matching every turn, every shift of speed. I tried not to look, tried to focus on the white lines, but my eyes kept drifting to the glass, drawn by something cold, a pulse of wrongness pressing against the side of my head. And then, the running stopped. It was just standing there now, still beside the car, only we were going 60. It didn't move, didn't fall behind. It stayed, as though the reflection itself was frozen in place. The outline wavered in the dark tint of the window, and slowly its head began to tilt forward, until it was level with my own. I couldn't look away. The reflection leaned closer, its face nearly touching the glass, and for the first time, I could see its breath fogging the window, on the inside. The air turned sharp in my lungs. I slammed the brakes. The car lurched, tires skidding over the wet asphalt. The headlights cut through the fog and hit nothing but emptiness. Silence pressed down like a weight. The engine idled in a low hum. I turned toward the window again, only my reflection stared back. No shadow. No runner. Just me. My pulse was still in my ears. It felt like the whole night had been holding its breath. I shifted the car into drive. Started moving again, slowly. The fog thickened, wrapping around the road like pale smoke. I told myself I was imagining it. That exhaustion does strange things to the mind, but when I glanced once more at the window, for just a second, the reflection blinked, and I didn't. I kept driving. Didn't stop again until morning light touched the horizon. When I looked one last time at the glass, the fog from my breath had left a faint mark. A handprint beside my own. Too large. Too long, and on the outside. It was near dusk when I found it. The old patrol station had been closed for years. Half the roof caved in, floorboards swollen with damp. The air smelled of rust and paper. The kind of smell that clings to your clothes. I was only there because of a rumor. Someone said there were still files left behind. Old reports. Things that were never entered into the new system. In the back room, behind a filing cabinet that had sunk into the warped floor, I saw it, a small leather-bound log. Worn. Faded. Marked Patrol Report. District 9B. The first page was dated 1998. Neat handwriting, steady, professional, routine traffic stops. Lost dogs. Quiet nights. Then the tone changed. Around page 20, the handwriting started to shake. Sentences trailed off mid-line. Reports of shadows on the roadside. Man seen walking against traffic. Disappeared when approached. Another entry. Car tailing at distance. No headlights. Vanished near mile marker 73. I turned the pages slowly. Each one seemed darker, smudged at the corners like they'd been handled too many times. Radio interference between 114 and 122. Voices not from dispatch. Kept repeating, "Stay off the road." The ink had bled in places, like the words were sinking back into the paper. I ran my thumb along the margin. It felt slightly sticky, like something had been spilled long ago. Outside, the wind scraped across the siding. The whole station creaked, as if something heavy was shifting in the rafters. I read on. Lights in the trees again tonight. Red and blue. Moving too slow to be a patrol car. A few lines later, saw a figure near bridge. Looked like Sergeant Hensley. Hensley's been dead 3 years. The handwriting broke apart completely after that. Words scattered across the page, barely legible. Static won't stop. Can't turn off radio. He's at the window. I froze. The words seemed wet under my fingers as if freshly written. The next page was worse. Half torn. The ink dragged across the paper in a frantic loop. Then a handprint. Dark. Smudged. Pressed right over the final lines. The fingers trailed downward, as though someone had been pulled away mid-sentence. I traced the shape without thinking. The paper was cold to the touch. Almost damp. Behind me, something popped. A sharp click from the direction of the old radio desk. The patrol radio sat there, coated in dust. The cord long since severed, but I could hear it. A low hum, static, like a whisper caught between frequencies. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The radio crackled once. Then a voice, faint, broken. Unit 4. Reporting from Highway 40. The same route written in the log. The voice paused. A breath, then, requesting backup. I felt my throat tighten. It was the same line repeated over and over, each time softer, more distant. I backed away. The light through the window was fading. The trees outside had turned to silhouettes. The voice on the radio began to distort, warping into a low hiss, like something breathing close to the mic. Then silence. I looked down at the patrol log still open in my hands. The last page had changed. Fresh ink. New words written over the old. Still here. The handwriting was mine. The air turned cold enough to see my breath. The radio clicked once more. A faint scrape of movement somewhere just beyond the doorway. I set the log back on the desk and stepped outside. The wind had died completely. The world was quiet. Too quiet. When I glanced through the cracked window one last time, the radio's light blinked once, soft red against the dark. And beside it, the patrol log sat open, the handprint still wet. It was late autumn, the kind of night where the sky feels hollow. A pale stretch of cloud swallowing the stars. I'd taken the wrong exit somewhere outside town. No signs, no lights, just the hum of tires on cracked asphalt. The air outside was heavy, thick with the smell of rain that hadn't come yet. I thought I'd find a landmark eventually, a gas station, a mile marker, anything. But the road just kept going, straight, endless, cutting through fields that looked the same on both sides. My headlights stretched ahead into nothing. The beam hit only fog, and the fog seemed to move with me. I turned the radio on, only static. Turned it off again. For a while, there was comfort in the sameness. The rhythm of the tires, the steady hum of the engine. It almost felt peaceful. Then I noticed the signs were gone. All of them, not blank, just missing. Every post I passed had nothing on it. Bare metal frames where words should have been. The road markings had faded too. No white lines, no shoulder. Just a flat strip of black that disappeared into itself. I slowed down, noticing how quiet everything had become. Even the crickets had stopped, only my breathing filled the space. After a while, I saw something ahead. A shape. Distant, small at first. Standing right in the middle of the lane. I blinked, thinking it was a post, a trick of the headlights. But the shape moved. It was walking, slowly. Straight down the center of the road. Away from me. No reflective clothing, no light. Just the faint outline of a person gliding through the beam. I eased my foot off the gas. The car coasted to a crawl. The figure didn't turn, didn't react. I rolled the window down. The air that came in was cold, damp. It smelled faintly of metal. I tried to speak, but the words caught somewhere between thought and breath. My headlights flickered once. Then steadied. The figure was closer now. Still walking, still perfectly centered. Each step matched the rhythm of my heart. When I blinked, they were suddenly farther away, like the distance between us had shifted. The road behind me was empty. No turnoffs, no signs, just that same black ribbon stretching back into the fog. I thought about turning around, but there was nowhere to go. No shoulder to stop on, no lights in the mirrors, only the hum. The figure had stopped walking. It was standing still now, facing away from me. Head tilted slightly to one side as if listening. I pressed the horn. A short burst, the sound barely echoed. It felt swallowed, muted. The figure tilted its head further. Then began to move again, but not forward, backward, toward me. Each step slow, measured, as if drawn by the headlights themselves. I threw the car into reverse, but the engine hesitated, a low grind, as though the air had thickened around it. The figure was clearer now. The clothes looked torn, like they'd been out here too long. I could see one arm hanging oddly low, fingers grazing the asphalt. No face, just pale skin where features should have been. I blinked, and it was closer. Too close. The engine finally caught. I reversed hard. Tires screeched. The figure didn't move, didn't chase. Just stood there, head still tilted like it was watching something beyond me. I kept going until the headlights caught only fog again. The figure was gone. I stopped the car. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I waited, listened. The fog ahead rippled once, like breath on glass. Then a shadow moved across it. The same outline, just farther down the road again, walking away, same pace as before. I turned the car around. But the road behind me was the same, empty, featureless. Every direction looked identical. I drove for what felt like hours. The same stretch repeating, the same patches of cracked pavement. When I finally saw another figure in the distance, I didn't slow down. Didn't breathe. Didn't look. Because this time it wasn't walking. It was standing still, arms out, waiting, and as I passed it, I caught my own reflection in the side mirror. Face pale, eyes empty. Walking down the center of the road. The fog had been following me since the last town. It clung to the road like a living thing, soft, pale, heavy. I hadn't seen another car in nearly an hour. Just that long, winding highway and the low hum of the engine beneath me. The dashboard light was dim. A quiet pulse of blue against the glass. It felt like being underwater. When the red and blue lights flashed behind me, I almost felt relief. Someone else was out here. Someone real. The beams cut through the fog, flickering against my mirrors. I slowed down, heart steadying a little. I pulled to the shoulder. Or what I thought was the shoulder. The asphalt disappeared into mist, and the tires crunched softly on gravel. I kept my hands on the wheel. Waited. The lights kept flashing, but no one got out. The fog swirled between us, curling over my windshield in pale ribbons. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The patrol car just sat there, idling, its lights spinning silently through the haze. No shadow in the driver's seat. No shape behind the glass. Still, I waited. Minutes passed. The cold started to creep in through the vents. The air smelled faintly of iron, and something wet like rain on dust. I thought maybe the officer was calling something in. Or maybe they were waiting for me to step out. I cracked the door open. Fog pressed in immediately, damp against my face. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, but I could feel the pulse of those lights on my skin. A soft red, then blue, then red again. I took a slow step toward them. The gravel shifted under my boots. Each breath came out pale, visible. The patrol car wasn't idling anymore. The engine wasn't making a sound. The silence felt heavier than the air. I stopped a few feet away. My own headlights dimmed behind me, swallowed by the fog. The patrol lights flickered again, but slower now, almost like they were fading. I leaned closer. The glass of the driver's window was smeared with moisture, but through it, nothing. No steering wheel, no radio. Just a hollow interior, empty as a shell. My chest tightened. I took a step back, and the lights went out. Everything vanished into gray. The sudden darkness made the air ring in my ears. I turned toward my car, but the shape of it was gone too. Just fog. Just distance. A low hum rose from somewhere close, like a wire straining, and then the lights came back on. Right behind me, blinding. Red and blue tearing through the mist. I froze. The soundless flicker wrapped around me, painting the fog in sharp pulses. Then, before I could move, the patrol car rolled forward, slowly, directly toward me. The tires didn't crush the gravel. They didn't make a sound. The car moved like it was gliding. I stumbled backward, but the lights swallowed me again. It passed straight through me. Cold tore across my body, like I'd stepped into a frozen stream. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The patrol car drifted through the fog ahead of me. Transparent, its frame flickering like heat waves on asphalt. Through the rear window, I saw something, a figure in the back seat, head turned sideways, pressed against the glass, mouth open as if whispering something I couldn't hear. Then it was gone. The fog folded shut around the empty road. Only my heartbeat remained, loud and steady in my chest. I found my car again by accident, the faint reflection of its mirror catching a trace of my headlights. I climbed in. The seat was colder than before. The air felt heavier, thicker, as though something unseen had been sitting there while I was gone. When I started the engine, the radio flickered on by itself. Static. A faint hum. Then a voice. "Pull over." It was thin, warped like a recording underwater. "Please, pull over." I turned it off. The fog outside pulsed once more with light, far in the distance now. Fading. But as I drove on, I realized something strange. Every few miles, those same red and blue lights appeared again. Ahead this time, cutting through the haze, always the same distance away, always waiting. And every time I caught up, they'd pass straight through me, cold, silent, empty. Like the road had been looping for years, and I'd just taken someone else's place in the patrol report. It was late. Later than I meant for it to be. The highway stretched on in quiet black lines, vanishing into a horizon I couldn't see anymore. The air inside the car was heavy, thick with that dry scent of dust and metal. The kind that clings to old engines and tired lungs. I'd been driving for hours. Past the towns, past the lights, past everything that felt like the world I knew. Only the hum of the tires kept me company. Only the steady rhythm of the road beneath me. And then, somewhere after midnight, the road began to change. No signs, no mile markers, just asphalt and silence. The fog rolled in slow, pale, and soft against the windshield. The headlights pushed it back only a few feet, like shining into milk. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. My eyes burned. That's when I saw it, a shape standing in the center of the road. Far ahead, still as stone. For a second, I thought I imagined it. A shadow caught in the beams. A trick of the fog, but it didn't move, didn't shift or fade. It just waited. I slowed down, the tires whispering over the cracked pavement. My breath fogged the glass. The headlights carved a narrow path forward, and the figure grew clearer. It was human, or it looked like one. Tall, thin, head tilted slightly as though listening for something I couldn't hear. I told myself I'd pass by. Keep going, but my foot eased off the gas. The car coasted to a crawl, and when I tried to speed up again, the engine coughed once, then went still. Everything went dark. The headlights dimmed first, then the dash lights faded one by one, until the world outside and the one inside were the same black. I sat there, hands still on the wheel, heart slowing. The silence pressed against the windows, not empty, just aware. The figure was still there, closer now. I could make out the outline of its shoulders, the faint shimmer where its shape met the fog. It didn't walk toward me. It just arrived. The space between us shrank without sound. My fingers brushed the keys, trying to turn the ignition, but they wouldn't move. It was as if the air had thickened, holding everything still. I could hear something faint, like breath against glass, slow, even, right beside me. I looked to the window. Nothing. Only the soft reflection of my own face, washed pale in the dim starlight. When I looked forward again, the figure was standing at the hood. It leaned slightly to one side, its head tilted just enough to meet my eyes through the windshield. There were no features, no edges, just the dark shape of a person cut out from the fog. And yet, it felt familiar, as if I'd seen it before. In every curve of this road, in every shadow that waited just beyond the light, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Just tired. Tired of driving, of chasing the end of a road that never seemed to end. The figure raised a hand. Not to knock, not to reach. Just to rest it against the air between us. The glass shimmered where its palm would be. For a moment, everything was quiet. Completely still. Then the fog began to pull inward, swirling around the car in slow circles. The air grew cold. My breath came in short, shallow puffs. The figure didn't move. Didn't fade. It waited, so I opened the door. The handle was freezing, slick with dew. When the door unlatched, the sound was too loud, sharp in the silence. The fog drifted in, wrapping around my legs, cool and damp. The shadow didn't step forward. I did. The road beneath my boots felt softer than it should have. The air smelled faintly of rain, and something else. Something old. When I turned to look behind me, my car was gone. Just the faint outline of tire tracks leading into the dark. Only the figure remained. It was standing beside me now, though I hadn't seen it move. And in the reflection of the fog, the shimmer of pale starlight, I thought I saw my own outline beside it. Two shapes, the same. The wind shifted. A faint hum passed through the trees. Then nothing, no road, no light. Just a soft, endless white. The figure lowered its head. And the world faded with it, everything silent, everything still, like the last shadow before morning.